about our show is it's going to be unique.
You are what you do. You can say any amount of things that you want to say, but what you do is what everybody sees.
People are like, oh, I'm just going to JV it. Like, it's just JV it. Like, what the hell is that mean?
I cannot tell you how excited I am to hang out with you guys today, so thank you so much.
Well, then that end buyer could come back and say, well, I didn't fully understand that it was subject to.
That's not a thing. Like, the SEC has thought of all of these things. They've been here since 1932.
And you can do what you want with your property.
Buyers have time, they have negotiating power, they have options.
Oh my gosh, I am blown away by your inexperience, and they've been in business 20 years.
And that includes things other people put on your property, right? It's your property to be okay. Suddenly, Cousin Jimmy's in a lawsuit.
A novation is replacing one contract or one obligation with another.
Out with the old, in with the new.
Yes.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the show. Today, our topic is strategies for working with a realtor, how real estate investors can work with and partner with realtors or real estate agents. I'm Andy Fowler, and I'm here with Sean St. Clair. If you're new to the show, make sure to give us a like. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. On YouTube, we are at InRem Podcast. That is at InRem Podcast. With that, we're going to go to Sean, who has our legal update.
Thank you, Andy. So today I want to talk about the idea of not shying away from properties that have title issues. And when I say title issues, I'm talking major title issues. So it could be anything from judgments that have been recorded. It could be deeds of trust that have been recorded and not released. We regularly deal with transactions or properties where they've been used to secure bail bonds and multiple bail bonds, and the bail bonds lien or the deed of trust for the bondsman's not been released and the company's out of business. It could be there's a probate matter and there's 10 people that need to be or heirs that need to be located and dealt with, or maybe even more. Or there could be 3 or 4 or 5 people on title, and a bunch of them have passed away, and you're having to deal with those estates. And you start diving into the property and you realize, man, it's going to take a lot to solve these issues. And you know what? Chances are it will take a lot. However, you can find some really good opportunities that are mutually beneficial to you as the buyer and to the seller. The seller, they just want out. They don't want to deal with the property anymore. You as the buyer, if you have the resources to resolve the title issues, you could go in, you can, pay the property or pay the seller for a distressed or problem property, knowing that, hey, I'm going to have to come in here. I'm going to have to probably spend some attorney's fees. I'm going to have some holding costs. I'm going to have to wait some time in order to resolve these title issues. But when I do, then I can go back out onto the market and have a clear property that I don't have this distress. I don't have these problems, and I can sell it for fair market value. But right now, the property is not fair market value because it has, encumbrances and it's distressed and it has problems. I always tell my clients when dealing with title issues, which our office does quite a bit of, I always tell them, hey, look, there is generally no title issue, no probate issue that time and money cannot fix. It can be fixed. It's just a matter of time and money. How much, time is it going to take and how much money is involved? But at the end of the day, there are different avenues that we can pursue statutorily through the court system, or otherwise to resolve these title issues. Some of them have expedited processes. Other of them, like adverse possession, quiet title type actions could take longer. But at the end of the day, a judgment quieting title, a judgment declaring title or an interest or releasing a lien against the property will resolve title issues. And it's just a matter of going and obtaining that judgment and pursuing those types of avenues in order to resolve the title issues so that the problems with the property are resolved and you can go and sell it for fair market value. So there is a lot of upside in locating and even purchasing properties that have title problems. Now, you may not be able to purchase them through escrow. You may have to do it outside of escrow because title's not going to ensure your ownership, but you could go and work with the seller, work with an attorney, to do it outside of title insurance and to close the transaction with the seller to acquire title while you go and then at that point start to work to resolve those issues. So don't shy away from properties that have title issues because they can be bargains and there can be a lot of upside if you have the time and resources at your disposal to resolve those title issues.
Sean, I like what you mentioned there, that there generally really is an answer to fix the problem. And one of the problems I think with so many investors with real estate issues is they come to a problem or a title issue and it looks, if especially if you haven't dealt with it, daunting or impossible to deal with. So the reaction is, well, that's too bad. That would have been a great opportunity. But one example I think of is the homeowner who died and left their property to 5 different kids, and 4 of them would like to sell and 1 doesn't. Well, the first thought as an investor is to think, well, 1 of the 5 doesn't wanna sell. There's nothing else we can do. I guess we'll move on. And in reality, when a problem like that presents itself, that's when you have your biggest financial opportunity. And just with a quick consultation with a lawyer or whoever you've been working with, you'll find out, well, there is something that you can do, and you can force the sale of that property. You can buy out the other sibling's interest at potentially a heavy discount because they don't wanna have to deal with it and force the issue, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's partition actions. We had a case where it was a seller carryback, so an individual lender. The the lender died, or the seller, the former seller died, left like 7 children, and we had to track down those heirs and get them to sign the release because it was paid off. It just we needed somebody to sign the release, and we were able to do it. It took some time, it took some money, but once it was resolved, the property was sold and there weren't any issues. And so it's one of those things where you look at and you're like, oh, how is this going to happen? How are we going to pull this off? And it can happen. It can be done. It just takes persistence and and you have to be patient too. It's not going to happen overnight. But you're right. I mean, we've had clients who have had those deep discounts because they bought out a sibling group that didn't want to deal with the other siblings squatting in the property, who didn't want to sell. And then, our investor client buys them out at a discount and comes in and, ends up forcing the sale of that property, sells it for fair market value and, does pretty well. So
Yeah, where you have the biggest problems is when it presents oftentimes the biggest opportunity. And one other thing I can't help but think, and we had an episode about this a few months back, but it makes me think that the lawyer that you're using is an important piece of this because a good real estate lawyer is going to find ways to help make your deal happen. Not in an irresponsible way, but is going to find ways to be
right.
creative in order to do this. A defeatist lawyer that wants to kill the deal is going to be like, well, he can't sell. Forget it. Move on. It's just going to be too expensive.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, have I come across title issues where my clients presented it to me and I started working through everything? I'm like scratching my head thinking, oh my goodness, how is this going to, work out? But, I went back to the client and said, look, here are all the problems, and I laid them all out, and we're just going to have to, tackle it one problem at a time and, work through it. How much time do you have? Because it's going to take some time. I had one, honestly, and it just took that much time. And, it wasn't like we were sitting around twiddling our thumbs. There were like 10 problems, and we just took them one problem at a time. It took us a year and a half to finally clear title. But when we did, that property sold for a very nice number. But it took us a long time because we had to just go, one issue at a time, because it would have been too much and too costly even all at once to do it. Try to tackle all 10 issues, but we just worked our way through. The client was patient. We kept them informed, said, okay, this one's resolved. Let's move on to the next one. Like, okay, great. Let's keep going. And went through and resolved them all. And, a year and a half later, they closed and, sold it for fair market value. And they were as happy as can be.
All right, let's get into some news and events of the day. This Thursday, April 6th, we have our Creative Finance Symposium coming up. As you will recall, we hold the Creative Finance Symposium every other week, every other Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. with a hard start at 6 p.m. and a hard end at 7 p.m. This week, we're talking about key provisions of the subject to addendum. Sean, why don't you explain to our listeners why that's an important topic?
Yeah, so the subject to addendum is something, and it's this one's for acquisitions. You actually should have a subject to addendum for acquisitions and one for dispositions. If you're going to do a disposition with a wrap or some form of seller financing. But for acquisitions, you basically, the subject to addendum is what discloses to the seller the nature of the transaction. And it also has other provisions in there for the protection of the buyer and even for the protection of the seller. But it's something that should go with the purchase contract and should accompany the purchase contract if you're going to do some form of subject to transaction, so that basically everybody knows exactly the nature of the transaction.
All right. So make sure to join us at the Creative Finance Symposium. You can find that link on Facebook. So it's a Microsoft Teams meeting link, similar to what you might have seen with Zoom. If you've been with us before, you'll know what that looks like. But it's a team format where which basically encourages participation among the members. It's a chance for you all to listen, but to be able to answer questions. And it's one of the few times that we try to make ourselves available to answer those questions free of charge. So you'll be able to find that link on Facebook. We're also going to post that link on our YouTube channel in the community section. But that is a place for you to click through and register. It doesn't cost anything. We just ask that you register and then be available on Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Also, today is another day that we make ourselves available to answer questions to you, and we would encourage you to ask your questions today. I'm going to turn it over to Mayu here, who's going to explain what you need to do to participate with us and ask your questions today.
Hi, I'm Mayu. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. And we are here live on the InRem podcast today. So thank you for everyone who's tuning in with us. You heard it right. We are taking questions live on the show. We will be monitoring our live comments. So if you're watching us, whether it's from our YouTube or Facebook, and you have any questions specific to today's topic, make sure you drop your questions in the live chat, and we'll spend the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show answering them.
All right. Thank you, Mayu. That's right. Make sure to ask your questions. You don't have to wait till the end. You can post them now, and we'll make sure that we get to them in the last final 15 minutes of the show. So today we're talking about the strategies for working with a realtor or a real estate agent. So strategies on how real estate investors can do that and work through that process. And our guest today we have is a real estate investor and also a real estate agent or realtor, Templeton Walker. Templeton, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I understand. So I know you're a real estate investor, but you're also a real estate agent. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the real estate game.
So been in real estate for 9 years. I got in just as a regular realtor, right? I was about 25, 26 at the time. I had 34 different jobs. I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur, but I knew I was unemployable. I was like, what is going on here? I just, hardworking, sweet, kind-hearted, but just I kind of couldn't suffer a fool's errand. And when I got into real estate, it was my first time making good money quickly and solving problems on my own. It was empowering. And I'm so sorry, guys. There's a landscaper outside my office building here, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
So I just took to it quickly, and I just got in as a regular realtor. And to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I think like many realtors in the beginning, I I was struggling to find my footing, but I knew I loved serving people and I knew I loved getting paid exponentially rather than linear. So in I think my second month, I had closed a couple deals. And even after my broker splits at that time, I made like 17 or 18 grand, which I had never made that much money. And I did that in a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And, so I grew that pretty quickly, and I started something called Templeton Group, and I had a bunch of agents, and I was really just a traditional realtor for my first 3 or 4 years. And what I didn't realize I was doing is I was really bird dogging for investors, and I was really good at finding deals, but I didn't understand how to like kind of structure the whole thing. So I was just making a point or, grabbing the commission, which I was so thankful, but I'd look at the HUD or the settlement statement and I'd make 12 or 15 grand. Again, so thankful for it. But then there was an investor making 130,000 or 90,000 or 40,000. And I was like, what are they doing? So that's when I kind of opened my eyes to, oh, there's a whole nother side to this that I need to go learn. And so now I'm 9 or 10 years in, and I've been investing, I'd say, at a pretty high level for the last 5 or 6. And the last few years alone, I've probably wholesaled over 400 contracts, fixed and flipped over 100 homes. I own a pretty good portfolio of rental properties. I have a joint venture title company. I still have the traditional real estate company. So I've kind of vertically integrated all these layers to try to not have a problem come my direction that I can't solve.
Templeton, I know you're a real estate investor with SoulPod. Tell us about SoulPod.
So SoulPod is kind of my community of people. And you guys know Miguel and Rodolfo, my partners, who they kind of run the ins and outs of the business. But SoulPod to me, I'm into health and wellness and fitness. I do all this weird stuff in my backyard. I have a cold plunge and sauna, and I do these breathing exercises. And I was doing this breathing exercise, and I was listening to Ram Dass, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but he's like an enlightened guru guy. And during this breathing session, he was talking about like your tribe, your people, like the people that you are with today, you'll be with them forever. He's like, that's your pod, that's your soul pod. And I like sat up, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my crew. Cause like, I really have like just outside my office door here, I have about 20 people out there that are all hustling on a similar vision, right? It's soul pod. So that's what SoulPod is it really just started as an investment community. It was kind of the umbrella brand that everything sat under. And then the name stuck, and then that really became the actual company that everything sits under. So SoulPod is the umbrella brand of a collection of real estate companies.
So you mentioned a few investment strategies that you've utilized over time or throughout your career. Give us an idea about what some of your favorite investment strategies are that you're using and maybe even currently using as the market's changed.
For sure. So I think most people overcomplicate it. And for me, I'm not like the brightest crayon in the box here. Like I know what I do really well. I think I have a really high EQ, maybe not IQ, emotionally, people connecting, no one better. But I'm not going to go get into the nuance or the weeds of like complex strategies so much. So what I would say is I call it my menu of options. First and foremost is people need to understand that they are an acquisition company. Listing a house, wholesaling a house, flipping a house, creative finance on a house. All of those are tools and exit strategies, but they're not businesses. The best way for us to make money is to acquire problems, is to acquire the seller that raises their hand and says, I need help. And then what I've gotten really good at and what I've taught my team to do is we go meet with that person or we speak with that person and we go, hey, we don't know how we can help you yet. What we need to do is do some fact finding and some discovery, and then we'll decide. So for me, I still think just like the bread and butter is saying, hey, what I really love, and the reason why I love being a realtor and a real estate agent as well as an investor, I always tell people be an investor first and say, I want to buy your house. And 9 times out of 10, that person, if they need to sell, that's a way better hook than saying, oh, I'm a realtor, I'd love to list your house. It's like, yeah, you and the other 70,000 realtors want to do that. Not that sexy. But if you say, hey, I just buy houses, and they actually have a house to sell, they'll go, I have a house to sell. And you go, oh, perfect. Tell me about it. I'd love to buy it. 9 times out of 10, you guys, that house is going to be beautiful. And it's not going to make sense for a 60 or 70 cent offer. Or they're not going to want to give you terms. But what they will want to do is go list it on the market. And that's when I love to pivot to agency. And a good line that I love is like, hey guys, there's money to be made here. It's just not necessarily by me. As much as I'd love to give you 250 grand for your house, it's beautiful. And in today's market, you could probably go get 400,000. And even after my fees, you're going to make 6 figures more money than what I could give you today. I really think I should have my assistant send over a contract. We'll do a standard listing agreement and let's go put this on the market. That's where you're going to go make the best money. So now so many investors are unwilling to make that pivot, and 9 out of 10 leads that aren't willing to take a cash offer or aren't willing to look at terms, they're just throwing those leads away. Where what I've done is, I go sell another $50-60 million a year of real estate traditionally off my investor leads just by pivoting the question. Because the investor space, we're all kind of jaded. If there's not heavy motivation or a big problem, we just move on. Where, hey, if they want to sell, I'm going to give them an option. So I really like that simple approach is be an acquisition person first. Don't waste a single lead. And then when you start to vertically integrate, you guys, that same lead pays my title company. That's more title work. And on traditional deals, you get way better title fees. And then they need to go buy and move somewhere. So I have one of my buyer's agents help them on the buy transaction. Oh, again, there's more title work. Oh, I have a lending relationship where my lender actually has an MSA with me and I earn money there. So you can, really open up the revenue off one lead if you're willing to see the whole field, I guess.
Now, you entered the space, correct me if I'm wrong, but you entered the real estate space as an agent, correct?
Yeah, I was a regular agent. I legit did not know what I was doing.
Which is probably the most common way to enter the space, I'm guessing. But so you enter the space as an agent, but now you approach it as, look, I approach this as an investor first. When did you make and how did you make that kind of change in thought process and how you viewed it?
Probably 5 years ago. And I'm a big believer in who, not how. Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, he wrote a great book called Who, Not How. And I don't try to complicate the issue. I don't need to know how, I need to know who. So when I realized I was really good at finding deals, but I didn't know how to do the actual how, I didn't know how to wholesale a house, I didn't know how to flip a house, I always say tie to a bigger boat. So now I'm the bigger boat. So a lot of people tie to me and they bring me the deals and I go solve it. And then we split the money. So in the beginning, my good friend, Jamil Damji, who I'm sure you guys know, he wasn't as prolific as he is now, but he was well known in the space and he was kind of the main wholesaler, the main guy. And I would just take him deals and I'd be like, dude, they have a problem. I think this is what we should do, but can you do it? And you can have half the money. And he was like, of course. So I got a world-class education from him, made great money, but I brought value to someone that is very busy, very smart, but he made fantastic money. And I did that for about a year, just bringing him deals. And I learned in the process. And that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. But I think what I did wisely is I didn't just go, I was making really great money doing that, but I didn't just like forget about what was paying the bills prior. Being an agent was a great business for me. So what I did is I stabilized that business. I always say the law of reciprocity gets broken when you're out of alignment. So I got with my agents and I said, hey guys, I'm going to be less involved. And for that, I'm going to give you a little bit more split. You guys are going to keep more of the money and I'm going to give you these things: transaction management, opportunities for open house, investment. But I made it very clear that like me, Templeton, being like the rah leader every day is probably not going to be there. And if you guys want to go, no problem. I get it. But if you want to stay, it's going to look like this. So that gave me peace to say, okay, the right people stayed with me. I still have this revenue stream, albeit a little less. I skinnied the margin, but I took my obligation away. And then I really got serious about launching the investment business where I was making, really nice rips of money and learning in the process.
So as you shifted to being a real estate investor and approaching properties and deals as an investor, did that change your view on the role of being a licensed real estate agent, or have you just learned better how to integrate the two?
I've learned better how to integrate, but I mean, I do have a lot of respect for a great realtor or a great real estate agent is worth their weight in gold. Again, who, not how. A great realtor, a great real estate agent should know the hows, and they should be able to protect you and be a true fiduciary for you in the transaction. So a great realtor also I look at them as partners. I look at what's crazy, guys, is I'm a realtor and I've turned every realtor in the Valley into my partner because I've been on the internet now for 8 years saying, send me your deals. So I'm not looking for a consumer or a seller always to bring me the deal. I take realtors, and when they have a problem or they have a deal that doesn't quite make sense, or they know they're going to put it on MLS and get 97 offers and it's going to be a whole thing, they just send it to me first. And what I do is I just say, hey guys, you can take both sides of the commission. Go ahead and represent me. Even though I'm an agent, I could technically go try to earn that commission. I now incentivize them by saying, hey guys, make the whole spread, make what you need to make. Just make sure that you call me first and let me make an offer on it that might make sense for the seller. Great realtors who know how to be a fiduciary, solve the seller's problems, but also understand on the investor side, I got to buy it at a certain number to actually make the deal work. You guys alluded to it when maybe it was in your guys' pre-chat. I was kind of checking emails, but I was listening. Is great attorneys and great realtors and great professionals figure out how to get deals done rather than how to figure out how to kill them. And I think that's what being both really taught me, was that how do we make these things happen, instead of, a lot of times realtors or attorneys or whoever, they just want to tell you why it doesn't work. And my investor brain coupled with my realtor brain is like pretty powerful, because it's like, hey, we're going to disclose, we're going to be true fiduciaries, we're going to do things the right way, but we're also going to figure out how to make this actually happen. And that was a big thing, because so many realtors look at stuff and they're like, that's not a deal, it's dead, you can't do anything with it. And we know on this show that there's no such thing as not possible.
So for a listener that's watching and they think, wow, Templeton's figured out a way to integrate the best of being a real estate agent, an investor, and this can really work. And maybe somebody who's just entering the space thinks, wow, this is a road I would like to take my journey on. What does that look like on the real estate agent side of things? You don't just become a real estate agent overnight. What kind of training's involved in that?
So I can't speak nationwide, but I think it's pretty standard across the board. Here in Arizona, it's 90 hours. So, I mean, you could take a crash course and be done in 2 weeks. Then you sit for your state exam or your school test. You got to pass with a 75 or better. Then you go sit at, one of those Pearson testing centers, and you got to take the state and national. Both need to be passed with a 75 or better. All in all, you're going to spend about $1,200, because you're going to pay for school. You're going to pay for your test. You're going to pay for, once you get licensed, you got to pay a real estate board that you got to pay every year. That's another $500-$600. MLS access. So for 2 weeks of commitment, you guys, and like, let's just call it $1,500 on the high side, you can be a realtor. And I can tell you firsthand, and I have agents that work for me that go make incredible money. I mean, incredible money. And the barrier to entry is so low. I mean, you guys are attorneys. You guys were in school for how long?
Forever.
You guys, college was the best semester of my life. How long I was there.
I like that.
I made a baby by Christmas. I found out I was having my first son by Christmas break. I was like, what is happening? So just to say, and I've landed in a really good spot, but real estate gave me the ability to do that. So the barrier, and just because the barrier to entry is low though, guys, doesn't mean it's easy. So, and I think that's what people have to keep in mind, is like, your success will be directly correlated to your work ethic and your willingness to just get after it.
Now, you mentioned MLS access that a realtor has. What's the significance of that? What is the MLS? Why is it important for a realtor to have access to it? And what advantages does it give a realtor maybe over a layperson?
Okay, so a layperson is going to have access to Zillow and Redfin and, just these public sites that actually pull their data and information from the MLS most commonly. And an MLS stands for multiple listing service, that all of us licensed realtors and brokers agree when we get listing agreements, we're going to put it in this central place to market and sell these properties. And in doing so, we're going to offer something called a co-broke, which is essentially like, hey, if you bring me this buyer, we agree to pay you. So the contract is actually between the selling broker, the broker that gets the selling the seller. They're going to have a contract or an agreement for sale, let's say commonly for 6%. And then we go on the MLS and we say, hey guys, we're going to offer half of this 6%, 3% to anyone that brings us a buyer. And it's just it's kind of an exclusive site of listings that only realtors have access to, but it's where most people put their listings. So it's really powerful because, essentially we're all convening together and saying, hey, let's put all the food on one plate so we can all see what's there and we can all eat together. So it's great in that way, but you'll also find that, off market is, you can go make a lot of money that way too. But the MLS is a beautiful tool for investors and realtors.
Is the MLS, in your opinion, a value add to have access to as a real estate investor?
Yes, I would say so. So for me, a lot of times people debate, do you want a real estate license or not? I believe that you should get one if you can. And there's two reasons. One, when I'm an investor, I am a big believer in disclosure. Like, I think I'm going to meet like the big guy someday upstairs, and I don't want him to ever be like, hey bro, you were down there stealing houses. So I try to be disclose and be a true fiduciary, whether I'm supposed to or not. I just want to do the right thing because that's like the way I was raised. So that's one. So if I'm going to operate that way anyway, and that's what being a real estate agent requires me to do, okay, no problem. Two, you're naturally probably, if you're into real estate and this is something you're trying to do, you're going to naturally go buy 5 to 10 houses in your lifetime. Why not go make that commission? That's a couple $100,000 of commission that you can earn in your lifetime just on your personal residences. And now if you're willing to raise your hand and say, hey guys, I know a lot about this, I love it. I always teach my realtors, I'm a realtor, I'm excited about it, I want to help you. If you say those three things 10 to 12 times a year, friends, family, and your community will reach out to you and go, hey man, I know you're a realtor, I know you're excited about it, and I know you want to help me because you've been saying it. Will you help me? There's another couple 6 figures a year, you guys, in commissions that are just layups. So for me, why would I not be licensed? I'm willing to disclose, I'm willing to be a true fiduciary, and I like making easy money. So that's why I like it. And I have access to the MLS and some tools that are just data that help provide more analytics and more opportunity for me to, kind of suss through every day.
Templeton, explain also for us the difference between what is a real estate agent, a licensed real estate agent, and what is a realtor?
Okay, so and I saw this on the pre-email thing that you guys sent. I was like, oh man, I don't even really know. I would say I pay a fee to the Realtor Association, and there's some sort of benefits and stature that comes with it. But I might ask you guys, I don't even know. Like, do you guys know?
Sean, go for it.
Hey, who, not how, right? Every time I have a problem, I call you guys because you guys are way smarter than me. So I'm going to have to throw this one back at you. I don't even know.
So the difference is, and I'll say it real quick. The difference is that there is only state licensing for a real estate agent, but then the realtor is you have to join the National Association and the local associations, and you're governed by a code of conduct there.
Perfect. That makes sense. See, this who, not how, you guys. I'm showing you in person why this is so powerful of a tactic.
What other things that you have access to, unique things that you have access to because you're a real estate agent? MLS is one, but what else in addition to that do you think are value adds that you would enjoy having or would like to have had now that you've gone through it as a real estate investor?
I can tell you the main tool that I use every day, you guys, because I say, send me your deals, right? So I'm pretty much underwriting, comping houses, and then making offers to other realtors, investors, or sellers that send me their deals. And one of the main tools I use is called RPR, and it's called NARPR. And it's something that I think comes with being a realtor, but it's a little app. And imagine like an MLS on your phone for the whole nation. or like a really sophisticated Monsoon or Zillow that us as realtors have access to. And you guys, I comp houses across the nation on this little app that I get because I'm a realtor all day. And that's like one of the best for me personally. I mean, that's literally what I pretty much do all day is I'm on RPR and I comp houses. So without that tool, I'd be having to get on Zillow, or if I don't have MLS access to Flagstaff or Sedona because that's a different MLS, well, it gets harder for me to put value on the thing that I put value on. So RPR has been a game changer for me. So that, and then I would just say there's all sorts of perks and benefits as far as like they have brand deals, or they have agreements on your cell phone and your insurance and your car that you can go get discounts. That's cool. But I would just say like it does give you some weight behind your name when, let's just say I'm meeting with a seller and I'm using an association of realtors contract. I'm saying, hey, I have a license. I went to school for this. You can look me up. I have to operate by a certain code of ethics. And let's say my competing offer came in with a Word document that looks like, my 6th grade son drafted it. And I just use it against them. I'll be like, God, I'm licensed. Like I'm licensed. If you want to go with, PDF Willie over here, that's on you. But I think that could be a problem. So it just, I guess, lends some validity to what you do, who you are.
There's times we've seen where there's a little bit of animosity between real estate agents and investors. What
Yeah.
do you think drives that?
I would say investors, not so great investors, want to use realtors like just like a service person. Like I always say, every relationship, you guys, put yourself in the other person's shoes and treat them the way you would want to be treated. So if I'm an investor and I'm going to take a realtor's time to comp 10 houses and make 10 offers, and I have no ability to actually perform on what I'm asking, or I have, I'm not putting myself in their shoes and saying, hey, what's in it for them? I think a lot of investors look at realtors as just like this tool that they can use and throw away. And if they make a couple bucks, good for them. Where great investors figure out how to make their realtor tons of money. Because guess what? If your realtor is just making tons of money, you're making even more. So I look at it as like, I just think it's more of a human being thing. It's not even investors and realtors. It's anybody that doesn't figure out how to make win-win situations will cause a divide. And I think too many investors do that to realtors. And I also think too many realtors think their poop don't stink. They just think they're like special. And I'm like, dude, you went to 90 hours of school. You're driving a used BMW, like chill out, bro. So that's my thought, is like the realtors can sometimes be pretentious and like think they're cooler than they are. So can the investors though. And then the investors think the realtor is just like something that they'll use and throw away. And if they make a couple bucks, where if they just realized, wow, the realtor wants an investor because now they have a buyer in their pocket. That could be 10, 15, 20, 100 transactions a year that they can go get paid on. And the investor could look at the realtor as like, man, this person can literally go find me the exact assets and deals that I'm looking for, and they get paid by someone else. Why would I not utilize that service and treat them with kindness, respect, integrity, and treat their time valuable? And if you do that, you guys, I probably have 250 really good referral partners. So of those 400 deals I've done in the last 2 years, 78% of my deal flow comes from referral, typically other realtors.
Wow.
So that is why I think there's a divide. But I think that's more a human being thing. Like, people don't treat people well. And it's like, if you treat people kindly, help people win, then you will win tenfold, right? Like,
So we could approach this question really from both sides, but for a real estate investor who did not take the same road you did, they're not a licensed real estate agent, but they're hearing what you're saying and they're thinking, man, this makes a lot of sense. What are some things they can do to begin working with real estate agents and kind of building that trust and building that network?
Okay, so that's a great question. And this is what I did in the beginning, you guys. I didn't have money for marketing really. So what I did is I would call 20 realtors a day and I would say, "Hey, my name's Templeton. I buy houses in the area. I'm looking for these sort of assets. Do you have anything that you could sell me right now?" And that's usually when the realtor would say, "Oh, yeah, I have 3 listings on market and, I can send you the links." Well, I'm like, "Hey, I appreciate that. But if they're on market, chances are you're probably asking retail on some really beautiful houses. Is that right?" And they'll say, "Well, yeah, man, they're great houses." I go, "Perfect. I actually don't have an appetite for those per se, but do you have any of those sneaky kind of in between deals that are a little rough around the edges or complete remodels that I could be your buyer? I pay all cash. I buy as is, and I make it about as easy as possible for you to get paid. And the great part is I'd love for you to represent me and make both sides of the commission. In addition to that, if there's no commission available, I'm happy to take a percentage of my profits and share them with you. But here's what I need. I need you to put me in your phone, in your favorites, as the best buyer that you know. And I know I haven't done a deal with you yet, but I'm going to prove it to you. And I'm also going to call you twice a month to remind you that I need these sort of deals." And I make them laugh. That's the sort of energy I have. And I'll be like, "Hey, I'm serious. Are you putting me in your favorites right now?" And they'll be like, "Okay, chill." And I'm like, "All right, because I'm serious. I need these deals." And then I just build a rapport. If you do that 20 times a day, guys, 10 realtors are going to act too cool and not want your call. 5 are going to not answer. And then 5 are actually going to let you get through your pitch and maybe save your information. And if you have a good connection, put it in your CRM and you go, "Okay, Dave Brown, he was nice. He said yes. He does have a deal. Dave, can you tell me that address right now? I'll comp it right now." And then get good at what I think people really got to understand. It's one thing to ask and do the work. It's another thing to actually be able to execute on the promise. "Hey, Dave, let me look at it real quick. Hey, Dave, I could give you 280 on that house right now. Comps look like it's worth about 450. If it was beautiful, that's what you'd go list it at. Can you help the seller understand that 280 is probably a good number?" And he'll be like, "280 is a good number. I thought it was going to be less." A lot of times they don't know. So now I'm being a value add to them. And I'm like, "Hey, Dave, before your next listing appointment, do you want to call me every time prior so you could walk in with an offer in hand?" And he's like, "You do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, send to me. I'll tell you what a cash offer is. How great are you going to look, Dave, when you walk in and go, 'Hey, guys, this is a beautiful house, but I want to let you know, I'd already shared with one investor. He's willing to give you 300,000 a day. Hey, but here's the thing. I don't think, now that I see your house, I don't think you should take it, but I wanted you to know I already had an offer for you.'" How good does that realtor look in that moment? Or if the home is terrible, he's like, "Guys, look, here's the comps. It's worth 450 if it looked like this, these beautiful new houses, but it's rough. I think you guys know that. You're in, whatever the tight situation is." And now he has an offer in hand where he's like saving the day. Like, "Hey, I already have this for you." So, and then it's just a numbers game. Can you commit to I've done this 5-6 days a week, every day for 5-6 years. And, now it equals a lot of revenue, but it just was, one brick at a time.
Knowing what you know now about real estate investors, flip this on its head. As a real estate agent, are there things you would do to try to make these connections with investors?
Absolutely.
What
So,
what are the kind of things you would do?
well, one is I would understand the motivation of an investor. So before I reached out to you, or before I started sending you guys deals, I'd probably reach out and be like, "Hey guys, what are you looking for?" Because you guys might be buy and hold guys, or you guys might be, ground up new build, or you guys might like multifamily. So why in the world would I send you a condo in Old Town Scottsdale that's a lipstick flip? You guys are gonna be like, "No, dude, we build custom homes on acre lots." So I start with the end in mind. And I would get with a really good title company and say, "Hey, can you pull every LLC that purchased cash in this area, right? Whatever area you decide. Can I get every LLC that purchased cash?" Then I'd go over to a company like Batch Skip Tracing. My buddy Jesse Burrell owns Evo and Annie. And I would go skip trace that data. And that's going to give you the potential, addresses and phone numbers for these buyers. And now I'm going to call, you know, Bob Brown's LLC, home buying LLC. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm assuming this is Bob. You just closed on a property over on Power and Pecos. And that's the script, right? Like, hey, you just closed on this. I want to find you more of it. Tell me what you're looking for. And now essentially what you're doing there, guys, and you guys know this, you guys have talked about this enough. You're building a buyer's list, a detailed buyer's list. You're not just throwing mud at the wall. You're saying, oh, Templeton loves sub 400, 65% of ARV and lower, and I'll pretty much buy that. Single family. So that's what I would do is if I'm a realtor, I would figure out the motivation and start doing that. I would get really good at using the MLS as like a booby trap. The MLS is really powerful. If you're a realtor, you guys, if I know an area trades at 300 a foot, typically ARV after repair value is 300 a foot, I can go in and set a search that anytime something in this pocket hits for 220 a foot or less, I get an email. So I get 10 to 15 emails a day, you guys, where I have the MLS set up and I call it booby trapped. It's doing the heavy lifting, and it says Old Town House sub 300, East Mesa sub 200. I'll have all sorts of searches. Downtown Chandler, which is where I live and love and own a lot of stuff. Downtown Chandler under 230, right? So like every morning I'm going to have 20 to 30 opportunities that the MLS at least gave me an initial filter that goes, that might be a deal. And now I'm going to call and say, hey, Bob, I saw that property just hit on MLS. Seems like it's priced really well. You're probably getting all sorts of phone calls. What do I got to do to make this thing mine? And he'll be like, you get a grumpy realtor and they're like, well, submit an offer. What do you think? I go, hey, perfect, Bob, let me do this. Any chance you want to represent me? Because it sounds like you're getting multiple offers. Would you represent me on this so you can make both sides of the commission? I just want to make sure I get the deal. The moment he goes, yeah, I'll represent you. Guess what? Now he has a fiduciary, a dual fiduciary. I go, Bob, now that you're working for me, which I appreciate, where do you want me to come in at this? And he'll be like, oh, shit, you got me there. Well, now I got to tell, I'll be like, hey, can we use an escalation clause? I just use this MLS and then the relationship tactic to go win these deals. So sorry, that's what I'd be doing if I was an agent. I'd be exploiting MLS. I'd be finding end buyers. And then I'd be just playing matchmaker. That's all we are. Is a realtor is a great matchmaker.
Templeton, one of the mistakes I see a lot of my clients, well, not so much my clients, just investors in general, make is, and they go in and they find a property that's listed and they show up and they say, okay, I want to buy the property. Here's my purchase contract. And they submit some, like you said, a purchase contract that, maybe isn't very well drafted, or maybe it's great. Maybe it's been drafted by an attorney and it looks great and it has all the relevant terms, but it's like a 5-page purchase contract with all these terms, and they submit it to the agent. And the agent's like, yeah, we're not interested. Now, technically they have to show it to their client and whatever, but the agent doesn't want to deal with that contract because they want their forms. Why is it important to for agents to work with their standard, association forms?
Well, one, I think you alluded to it earlier, is there's protections in place. We pay E&O insurance, which if there was an error or an omission, we have something that can actually protect us. If it runs through your brokerage, you have a broker that you could call and get guidance and, help and support from. So I think that's why. And then also disclosure is key. Like, I don't know all the nuance that you guys know as attorneys, but one of the key things I always think about when I'm getting into a potential deal is everyone aware of everything that's happening? Or is someone going to be able to point and say, Temp didn't tell me this, where I can be, whether knowingly or unknowingly, exploiting someone? And for me, I just try to avoid that. I'm like, hey, I need you to understand your home is worth 500 grand if it looked like this and if it was beautiful. And I think it's going to cost about 100 grand to do that. So if you want to do that, I'll go take this as a listing and I'd love to sell it for you on the open market. But if that's not possible, you're probably going to have to take a cash offer here because here's all the math. And then I just show them the math of why I need to buy it so discounted. And I just really believe in tell everyone all the facts, and then offer enough services to help them the way they need to be helped. So I think that's why the AAR is really powerful, is those protections. Yeah, I hopefully that answered it.
No, that's spot on. I mean, it's one of those things where you're right. It comes back to E&O, to comfort level. If you're an agent who's been trained to deal with these forms, I mean, you go through classes on how to write this particular form and how to understand this particular form. You don't want to sit and spend your evening reviewing, a 5-page contract that you've never seen before and trying to play attorney to your client and explain exactly what it does, versus the AAR form. It has everything in there that we need, and I understand it and I can explain it, and that type of thing.
I also think what's a really good tactic, and I kind of put it on, so I always teach realtors like, hey, put it on me. I'm your buyer, kind of blame me. But when this MLS search comes up or like an opportunity hits and I got to call a realtor, I kind of blame it on the buyer, and I'll say, hey, I just saw you listed that property on 123 Main Street. It's, or maybe something's been sitting on the market a long time, right? Because you can also find opportunity there. But I'll say, hey, don't shoot the messenger here, but you're at 550. My client wants me to send over an offer at like 400, but it would be cash as is. It'd be super light. It's going to be simple and easy, but it's at 400. He wants me to do it. Do you want me to send that? And if they just say, do not write it, 9 times out of 10 guys, the realtor's like, do not send that offer. Like, don't waste the time. I'll go, hey, perfect. I'll let my client know that I submitted a verbal offer and it's a no-fly zone. But you do that enough times and someone goes, you know what? Send that over. I think we might be able to get it work. I mean, we've been on 200 days. Sellers just tapped out. Me and my wife just bought a new primary, you guys. It was on at 725, sat for 125 days. It's probably worth 850, but it was completely dated. 850 like new. I got it for 560. And I used that exact tactic. I said, hey, buyer on this thing, they want to come in at 500. And because they had kind of limped it down to 625. And I was like, hey, they got to come in at 500. And we ended up landing at 560 with a commission. So what is that, 540? So great deals are there. I mean, I do this. This is what I do every day. I don't know how to do anything else.
Well, and that's the thing. If a property has been sitting there for, say 4 months and nothing's happening, agents need to have those contracts that they can present and go to their client and say, look, you want 550, but the market has spoken and the market's telling you it's not worth 550. And
the agent only gets paid when we get a deal done. So they
correct.
have some motivation, right?
Yeah.
So,
right. And here's an offer that I received, and this is what the market is telling you right now, type of thing.
And when we talk about agent and investor relationships, that's a really good time when something's getting stale to, if an agent has investor relationships, reach out and say, hey guys, I think this thing, I mean, you could probably get it here, right? Play matchmaker. And you're not doing your client a disservice because the market's going to trade that house where it's supposed to trade. Correct. You're just supposed to bring it together. So that's a good way to work together. Sorry.
So Andy. We have a couple questions for you, Templeton. I'm going to turn it over to Mayu. Mayu, what are our questions?
So I think this first one is actually for you, Templeton. I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it. Do you find deals on the MLS, or do a majority of them come from the agents before they list it?
Great question, Gabe. Gabe is a great realtor, you guys. Best hair in the business. It's a mix. I love MLS. It's a great tool. We have an entire division of our company that strictly does MLS. Jeff, who is a partner here with us, he's amazing. He does MLS acquisition and he does very, very well with that. However, we have another role, agent outreach. That's Justin Helvey. Justin does specific agent outreach, and both of us feed us very well. So I would say it's a mix of both. You don't have to choose one or the other, but you might need to get some systems, processes, or people in place to help you do everything. If I was just a solo person, I would figure out where my best skill set is and lean into that and just do that 10 times better or 10 times more than anyone else instead of trying to do everything. So to answer your question, MLS and agent are both very powerful. The one that's going to work is the one you commit to.
Do we have any other questions?
There is one more question. Not sure who this one will go to, probably to you, Andy and Sean. A realtor selling a house, they say Habitat to Humanity gets first right of refusal. How are they enforcing it? Deed restriction, and they did leave some additional information at the end there.
Can't hear you, Sean.
Yeah, we
There
lost
we go.
your.
Yeah, no,
There we
we're
go.
good. All right. So a right of first refusal can show up in many different places. So it can be a separate document called a right of first refusal or an option to purchase. And it's a document that is created that basically says, hey, look, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars, and I want the first ability to buy the property at whatever offer you receive. So if you're going to accept, if you're going to accept this offer, then I want it to be able to purchase it. Other times it could be in the deed restrictions. For example, Habitat for Humanity may say, okay, we're going to convey this property to you, but if you're going to turn around and sell it, we want the right to buy it back. And so it's a condition of the sale. And so that would be found in the warranty deed, where Habitat for Humanity goes in, they improve the property or they build the house and they convey it to the buyer. And they put in there and say, okay, we're conveying this to you, but we don't want you to turn around and sell it. If you do, it's going to be in the deed, a reservation of a right of first refusal for Habitat for Humanity. And normally what that involves is you have to follow whatever notice guidelines are in the right of first refusal and send that out. I've worked on a number of commercial transactions where, for example, a large commercial tenant had a right of first refusal, and it was there in the lease. And we had to follow it. We had to give notice, and my client, the buyer, understood, hey, look, they may step up and take it. And we had one where they did. They said, we want to buy it. The tenant said, nope, we're going to buy it for that price. And my buyer client was out. The others that I've had, they waived the right of first refusal or didn't enforce it. And so my buyer client was able to purchase it. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out, okay, what notice do you have to provide? How long do they have to decide whether to buy it? And then you have to just wait it out and let that period go. And once that period goes, then your buyer can purchase it. But it's either going to be found in the deed or a separate agreement that generally is going to be recorded.
All right. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Templeton Walker. We really appreciate his time coming on the show, talking to us about being a real estate agent and a real estate investor. Great information. There he is. Is he still with us? Or we lose him again?
He's back. Let's,
here
we go.
My phone overheated. I think our podcast was so good, my phone just couldn't take it anymore. It's just
it went viral in all the wrong places.
I'm like, what the heck? So I'm sorry about that. But is that a wrap or what are we doing?
Yeah, no. So we're at the end of the show, but we do want you to go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
So Templeton_Walker at Instagram is always a good spot. I share a lot of my life and business there. Or tw@templetonwalker.com is my email. You could shoot me a message there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Templeton, for your time on the show. We appreciate it. Had a good time. Hope we could do it again soon.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. With that is our episode. Everybody, make sure to join us next week. We're talking about dealing with incapacity in a real estate transaction. That's an important topic, and one that if you do wrong could be very expensive to you. Our guest is Arizona attorney Lou Silverman. Looking forward to that. With that, we'll see you guys next week. Have a good week.
Have a good day, everyone.